If we have to talk about a social, political, and religious actor in Colombia who made a change or who had an impact in our society, we can mention Francisco de Roux. Francisco de Roux, he born in Cali in 1943. He studied philosophy and letters on the University Javeriana. He did a master in economy at the Andes University before he being graduated from theology from the Javeriana University too. Then he became a Jesuit priest in 1975. His career started on the Investigation Center of Popular Education as an investigator and developer of community enterprises. Then he did two master's degrees, focused on economics in the University La Sorbonne in Paris and in London School of Economics. In 1986, he directed the organization for peace called the Jesus Company, trying to solve the war conflict in the Magdalena Media by the creation of a new organization called the Program of Development and Peace. Because of his collaboration, searching peace and conciliation between the armed conflict and citizens, he won the National Prize of Peace in 2001. Then, he became in 2016 the president of the Jurisdiction of Peace in Colombia. He, he wrote a book called The Audacity of an Imperfect Peace. And finally, he said and he affirmed that truth and compassion with us, with ourselves, is what will take us to the future. Bearing in mind his history, he involved himself in advocating for peace in Colombia, and that's how he worked as a social, political, and religious actor in the Colombian society in a war conflict. Next, we are going to explain on what his job consists and how he became an important religious actor in the Colombian society nowadays.
Thanks, Antonia, for that. Francisco de Roux is very interesting because he uses an entirely secular discourse to frame his ideas around peace and progress, education, welfare, the value of life, and all of these ideas that are commonly found in human rights discourses. But his background is a background that is not entirely, well, secular. And through his activism and through his development of these programs that he has participated in, Francisco de Roux has actually helped to develop a form of secular religious participation in the construction of peace. So much so that even though he is a Jesuit priest, he occupies the seat of one of the most important entities that came from the peace agreement with the FARC, and that is the Truth Commission. He has used this space as the director, as the president of the Truth Commission, to elaborate a report on the history of the conflict, on the history of the victims, on the history of what has happened during the conflict in order to make it visible to the rest of the population. Because most of the conflict wasn't seen for decades. The way that the media portrayed the different massacres, the way that the media portrayed kidnappings, the participation of the guerrilla in the drug trafficking activities, all of it ended up being portrayed in ways that made it very hard for your average person to really glimpse what was actually going on. And his job has been vital and it has been central to constructing a common history in which we're all aware of the atrocities that were committed. And I think that that is the most important part of his involvement in Colombian development towards a more peaceful and modern era. He also recently said in an interview with Maria Jimena Dusan that believers have a duty with peace to love humanity as much as they love God, lest they become hypocrites. And I think this sums up perfectly Francisco de Roux' vision and his impact on the Colombian peace process, and therefore its actual progress forward towards a peaceful society.